had it up to here, and you're about to snap. They tell you to take a deep breath when you're angry. They tell you to stay calm to stay in control. But I've learned that staying calm can actually be an authority leak. And the big question is, how can we manage the situation instead of being managed by it? The moment our reactions take over, I call it the hijack effect. You might not realize this, but the small moments that lead up to that point are data that can lead us to the outcome we want. I split this data into two categories. One is our identity signals, and the other is the interaction patterns. We cannot create or sustain influence without both. We'll dive into how this data can prevent us from initiating the hijack effect, and a 3-step framework to shift us from reacting to conflict to designing the outcome. When I was running the gym back in the day, one of the services we had was hosting activities like active workshop, health fairs, and sports day. Negotiating prices and meeting clients' needs were a big part of the process. Anyway, there was this company constantly going back and forth with their requests and budget. At one point, they even scratched the whole plan, which took us 3 meetings to complete. When they called to cancel the whole thing, my mind was only filled with 2 choices. I could give in the hijack effect, snap and lose the client, or I could be nice and lose my dignity. But luckily, I did something else. I used the 3-step framework I had been developing. I didn't know if it would work at the time, but the shift in the atmosphere was immediate. The framework not only led our gym to a 15% profit gain for that case, but also to a pre-booked workshop contract for a whole year. I'll show you exactly what I did in a second. First, we have to talk about why that shift even happened. That incident made me realize that taking deep breaths might backfire when we face the hijack effect. So I started collecting data from responses, reactions, and expressions. That's when I noticed I was missing a crucial part of the full picture. We send out identity signals when we interact with the world. Those signals give the world an idea of who we are. Interaction patterns are the data we get in return. The truth is, every interaction is a data transfer. It's like trying to send your friend a 4K selfie. New hair, new makeup, but unfortunately, your friend has an old phone with terrible internet. Even if they downloaded your photo successfully, the best they can see is a 480p version where they cannot tell whether your lipstick is glossy or matte. At this point, you might think, okay, I'll just send clear signals. Tell people what I want directly, problem solved. But there's a trap here. How can we differentiate between rudeness and clarity? Staying in charge without being a jerk is a muscle you have to build. And the dangerous part is, if there isn't a blueprint for how to practice a skill, chances are we're doing the wrong reps, and we end up paying more authority tax, time, or even money. Here's the 3-step framework I mentioned earlier. I call it the reset. The first step is a long pause. When a line is crossed, like it was in the story I mentioned, stop for 5 seconds. Let the silence fall and the atmosphere freeze. Give your mind a chance to process the data and the other person's space to react. This is a position reset. It proves that you're not being managed by the situation and you have the power to turn the tables. After you run the data, the next step is to name the behavior, not the intent. For example, do not say you're being dodgy or flaky, that's an opinion. You say you're not honoring your end of the bargain or your end of the contract. That is a fact. Another example, you don't say, how can you be so rude? You say, that perspective doesn't lead us to a better outcome. When we give them facts, the evidence speaks for itself. After all, logic is harder to argue with than feelings. After cutting off the source of disrespectful behavior, the last thing we need to do is design the outcome. This is when you set the new trajectory immediately without justification. Make statements like, we'll negotiate the pricing once your expectations are settled. No over-explaining, no sorry, we'll draft you a new proposal right away. Simply return the system to its intended path. And by the way, I've noticed that most people who get hijacked have a secret leak. Most people apologize because they mistake clarity for rudeness. If you find yourself saying sorry for things that aren't your fault, you're not only sabotaging your identity signals even before you speak, you're also signaling that you're not yet comfortable with your own authority. So I'm curious, what is the one thing you catch yourself apologizing for most often, even when you know you shouldn't? Is it just saying no or simply having a boundary? Tell me your apology habits in the comments. I'm building a system to break this specific trap in a future episode, and I want to make sure it addresses the actual friction you're feeling every day. You might think being a nice and friendly person will get you more opportunities. However, nice people are hardly the most influential ones. The 3-step reset framework will feel strange because it removes the emotional heat. But that is how you can productively manage your outcome. Stop submissively existing, start designing your responses. The people around you will learn your identity signals and structure. If you find this episode helpful, you might be interested in what authority tax stands for. I'll link the video down below or here. In the next episode, we'll dive into the key to reset a dynamic you already let slide and how to regain your influence. Anyway, I'll see you in the next one. Bye!